Bradley J. Geiger, the robots are taking over, and I am here for it. Let me tell you what I mean, my friend.
Oh, really?
I have recently started using Waymo in Los Angeles, if you are familiar with Waymo.
Really? Yes.
So Waymo, for those of you outside of the U.S., there's one or two companies, of which Waymo is currently the best, that are offering level 4 autonomous driving. Level 4 is no human needs to be in the driver's seat. Like level 2 is you have to be there, but you have to have eye contact. Level 3 is you have to be in the chair, but you can read your emails and texts. Level 4, no human needs to be in. So the damn car is driving itself. And my wife, who is far smarter and braver than I am, did it first. And I was like, I'm not getting into that nonsense. There's no way I'm getting my ass into that seat. And then she's like, she gave me all the reasons why she loves it. Brad, I am sold. I am converted. I've used it like 4 times now, usually on either a date night or a night where I'm going to have a beer or two, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so like if we're going to an award show or something, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a beer at that. I'll take Waymo. Brad, it's amazing. It's amazing. Unapologetically, I flippin' love this thing.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. There's no chain-smoking Uber driver who is currently going through an emotional breakup or a divorce who's driving angry.
Or worse yet, going through TikTok.
Yes. I will take a robot who is super safe and like religiously follows street laws to the point where you're like, all right, that's enough of a wait at the stop sign. Come on.
Yeah.
But it literally is counting one Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, and you're like, all right, it's exactly doing. Brad, I'll take it, my friend.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, listen, I still remember that story you told from the awards show when there was somebody in the back of a Waymo and they for some reason traffic had gotten cut off and the car didn't know how to handle it. Meanwhile, the cop is saying, "You get this car out of here," and the guy's in the back seat going, "How? How am I supposed to do that?" That would be on my mind a lot. But I do have to admit, the idea of getting into the reason I liked Uber and Lyft was because I no longer had to talk to the taxi cab driver.
Yes.
Which was, it doesn't sound like a big deal.
But you can request silent ride, right?
Yes. And also, I was always having to tell the taxi driver how to get to my house, right? Okay, you come up here, you take a left, you make an immediate right, and then you go down this road, and you had to navigate them in. With Uber and Lyft, that just came up on their screen. They followed that directions. But I do have to say, even with that, a lot of times the Uber driver is kind of chatty because I think they try to chat you up because they think that you'll be more ingratiated to give them a good tip. Right. So they're a little, and meanwhile, I got to be honest with you, I'd tip you more if you just shut up.
Just stop talking.
I don't want to talk to anybody. That's the whole reason I'm in the back seat. and I do have to say, there's something about getting into a car with absolutely nobody in it that does kind of sound intriguing.
It's amazing. And if you are at all a person for whom safety is an issue, the idea of not having some creepy guy that knows where you live is delightful. You know, it's delightful. That's nice. Not having human contact is nice. Not getting in with a driver who's just gone through a divorce and is very angry at the world and their life and driving relatedly. But here's the thing, Brad, that I was thinking about. I can see a world now having used it 4, 5, 6 times, I can see a world where in my 60s, 70s, and 80s, I sell my car, don't have a car, and just take Waymo around LA. It's because LA is a very car city. You'd need a car. You can't do fully public transportation yet. But I mean, I can see a world where I would do that.
Yeah, no, that's a conversation we've actually had over here in Philadelphia, but it's a little easier in Philadelphia because we still do have good public transportation. Philadelphia is a very walkable city. You know, we could get an awful lot done just walking, right, in our neighborhood, because our neighborhood is kind of like its own little city.
both of our parents are older now, Brad, and live far away from us. Like, imagine a world where, you have a doctor's appointment today, but you're having trouble getting in your car, or your eyesight's not feeling great. You can send your parents a Waymo and like pick them up and take them to the doctor. Like, that would be, granted, listen, in terms of testing grounds, we can assume that Google is not doing Bad Axe, Michigan as their first testing ground. But like 10 years from now, that would be pretty cool. If your kids wanted to,
from now,
if your kids wanted to send you
about trying to get I'm trying to get the machinations that are involved in getting my mom on FaceTime, right?
Yes, true.
Getting her on a robot car is going to be that times 1,000. I think it's going to be a good 10 years down the road.
That is a great point. And on that note, everybody, I'm going to say hello and welcome to ComicLab, the show about making comics
and making a living from comics. I'm Brad Geiger, the author of the Webcomics Handbook and the creator of Evil Inc.
And I'm his friend Dave Kellett, cartoonist of Drive and Sheldon and co-director of the comics documentary Stripped.
And this week's hour of comics advice is made possible by your support at patreon.com/comiclab. So Dave, let's talk about that Hugo nomination.
Oh, Bradley, you caught me off guard with that. I'm so excited. Congratulations
on a well-deserved nomination for Best Artist at this year's Hugo Awards.
Thank you, my friend. So, gang, I want you to know, after years of trying, I'm finally going to be in sci-fi, Brad. I'm finally going to be in sci-fi.
Finally.
So much so that for those long listeners that remember it, I want to issue a challenge to my friend Brad Geiger. Ooh. We need an update on that song, Brad.
We need a new song.
Now that I'm going to the Hugo Awards and Worldcon, I'm actually going to sci-fi.
Oh,
because what did she say in the song? Do you want to be in sci-fi?
Do you want to be in sci-fi? Do you want to write a star?
but there's like, you gotta be in a book. Just take a look. You're gonna go so far.
Well, that's reading Rainbow.
Oh yeah. Anyway, but we gotta have an updated version of that song now, Brad. Because now I am going to Worldcon and am Hugo nominated, which for me means a lot.
I am so chuffed for you. You're gonna be there. You're gonna be on the show floor. You've got table space, right?
As of now, no. As of now, nothing. So
Are you considering it?
I'm going to No, I am considering it. In fact, I think they might have the whole NCS out for free tabling, I think. So I have to follow up with them on that. But yeah, let's just say that if nothing else, I'll figure out a way to do signing for fans and readers at the Worldcon.
And you'll be there. You'll at the very least, you'll be an exhibitor, probably a guest of the show as a nominee, I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but yeah.
And you're going to the award show.
I'm gonna have to shower and put on some kind of suit.
Oh my God.
This is great.
I'm really excited because I've often been personally offended that as good as Drive is, as good as your work in sci-fi is, that you've never gotten a nomination. And I'm very excited to see this happen for you.
I'm, it's funny. I'm on cloud 9 right now because, and gang, this is the God's honest truth. This happens every couple of years on ComicLab. Yeah. You're going to hear Brad and I repeatedly say to you in all seriousness, hey guys, listen, awards don't matter. They don't make your career. You still got to wake up the next day after winning an award and do the work. So do the work and it doesn't really matter. And then every couple of years, Brad or I will get nominated for something. We'll be like, I don't know, Brad. I feel like it matters. Brad. I feel like this year.
This may be the one exception.
The judges really got it right this year, Brad.
There was a great comic in the New Yorker where there was an actress accepting an award, and she said it was a great honor just to be nominated up until a minute ago. But yeah, you get to put Hugo Award nominee on the cover of the next Drive, right?
Oh yeah, and between you, me, and the wall, one of the things that Brad can do for the rest of his life is say Eisner nominated Brad Geiger, or Eisner nominated this or that, or Dave Kellett can now say Hugo nominated, and so that's fun. It doesn't necessarily, but again, long-term, big picture, it doesn't necessarily move the needle. So I don't want anybody to
change your
think
career.
It doesn't change. And this is now me switching back to being serious. It doesn't change your career. It probably doesn't even sell one additional book. No. But maybe it gets you a little bit more visibility, and then the work itself can ideally win over 1 out of every 100 people that now has been exposed to it. Don't you think, Brad?
Right.
That's fair, Brad?
This is where we change the conversation from one topic to another. In other words, realistically, yes, this does not change your career.
Right.
Nominated or not nominated, whether you win this award or don't win this award, your work speaks for itself. All that stuff is true. However, on the marketing side of this, when we talk about marketing and promotion, that's one more thing that you've got in your repertoire that you can rely on as you go forth and do the marketing and promotion things that we all need to do in the attention economy, right? You've got one more thing you can throw in there along with, winner of the NCS Divisional Award for this or nominated for the Eisner. Now you just have one more thing that Dave, we're going to have to ask superfan Ray Michaels to go into your Wikipedia page and update this. Ray, if you're listening, superfan Ray Michaels.
Oh, Grandpa had a win. We need to notch it up on the old Wikipedia page.
In reality, yes, everything you're saying is true. On the marketing side, this is another big get for you that you can use in future marketing, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt, and maybe, gang, it can be used to maybe have someone pick up a look of a book off a table at a convention, or maybe go to a website off of a link. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I'll check out the Hugo nominees this year. So yes, it doesn't hugely move the needle, but you can, for a brief window, maybe use a little bit of marketing zhuzh with it, and so. But in general, it's nice to, I'm just going to be honest, it's nice to be validated. I've never been noticed by the sci-fi world before, Brad. So this is literally me hunching my shoulders going, I don't hate it. I don't hate it,
No, it's nice. It's nice to finally be the pretty girl at the prom.
I've always wanted to be the pretty girl at the prom, Brad.
I know, and it's okay. It's okay to want that.
So anyway, yes, it's nice. And thank you to the Worldcon voters that nominated me for it. That's great. That's really nice. I really appreciate it.
Speaking of which, how do I vote? How do I want to vote for, I want to cast my vote for Dave Kellett.
Here's where Dave Kellett is super ignorant about wanting to be in sci-fi. I don't know how to vote, Brad. I don't know how to get involved. I don't know how it works. I'm kind of a jerk. I feel like, so anyway, I don't know. I think, so here's what I do know. You have to be registered at either this year's Worldcon, last year's Worldcon, or next year's Worldcon.
Okay.
To vote in the current Hugo Awards. Worldcon is, if you want to think about it, gang, it's the San Diego Comic-Con that hosts the Eisners, right? So Worldcon is the physical show that hosts the award show, the Hugos inside of it. And so to vote, you have to be attending either last year's, this year's, or I think next year's. After that, I don't know. I think you go to the Worldcon website and you log in with your account and you vote. I think. I honestly, I'm not being evasive. I don't know how it works yet, so I'll know by next week. How about that? But Brad, before we talk too long about me, I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to our sponsor this week, Huion, bringing you fantastic ComicLab and even more fantastic Huion drawing tablets, of which Brad and I have been using. So you want to check out their special deal over at comiclabshop.com. Right, Brad?
And don't forget to use ComicLab 5 to get an extra 5% off your order when you see that new Canvas 22 Generation 3. And I'm telling you, you're going to like what you see. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in the middle of the show. But right now, we have, I think, Dave, our first question of the program.
We do indeed, Brad. We do indeed. So, Brad, this is a question that comes in over at patreon.com/comiclab and says, Dear Brad and Dave, this is from Devin, by the way. I recently launched a long-form sci-fi Western webcomic that got a strong response on Reddit. Along with that, I've been getting questions about the world and the backstory, things that aren't really relevant at this point in the narrative. I understand the curiosity, and I don't want to ignore readers as I'm trying to build an audience. At the same time, I'd prefer the story to unfold on its own terms rather than get pulled into explaining things prematurely, Brad. I've considered saving that kind of material for something like a future Patreon tier, but that doesn't really solve how to handle it right now. How would you, Brad, recommend responding to those questions while still keeping readers engaged?
Okay, let's talk about this because I see some key words in that question, right? I see the words recently launched in there. And I see.
I love, by the way, this picture pages approach. I see Bobby. I see Susan. I see Greggy. It sounds like a children's program. I see recently launched. No, keep going. Yeah, but you're right. You're on the right
I see
track.
build an audience, right? And so I'm gonna go off and answer this question as if I'm talking to somebody who's launching this new thing, and now all of a sudden, and this is the best problem to have.
Yeah.
I've got an audience. Now, what do I do with them?
Right. That's exactly the way to look at it. Yes.
Yeah. Because this person has gotten a stronger than expected response on Reddit, which is fantastic. We've been really encouraging Reddit over the past several months.
Mm-hmm.
And Devin has the best possible problem. I've got these questions, and in a very human way, this person is saying, I don't want to screw it up. People are finally paying attention to me, or at least that's how I would feel in this situation. Well, the way I have felt at different times where I'm like, oh gosh, people are finally paying attention to this project I'm doing.
Yes.
I don't want to screw it up. And the thing about it is first of all, take a breath. You can't screw it up. Unless you get, like offensive and, you mean to people, which you're not about to do. But you can't really screw this up, because what's happening here is you've got a compelling story. You're delivering it well. Everything is working right now. You just have to keep going. And as far as the questions go, I would turn those into marketing, basically, to keep the theme going. In other words, I would say that's a great question. You are going to not believe what happens next. Or that's a great question. It's all going to be revealed. Don't want to spoil it for you yet. In other words, every one of those questions, you're going to turn into a reason for them to keep reading and to excite them about what's coming next.
That's a great example of the old Batman television show, same bat time, same bat channel next week, which is like, oh, you're interested? Yeah, I'm absolutely going to answer that question for you next week. Don't forget to tune in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Brad's right. That is a marketing opportunity to basically, what is the martial art where you use someone's energy against them as a judo?
Yeah. I think that might be common among a bunch of them, but I know what you're talking about. In other words, you use their momentum against them.
Their momentum against them, yeah. And I think everyone listening can agree that Brad and I are, frankly, the best living representations of the martial arts. I think.
My gosh. Just as a quick aside, you know how my family loves watching terrible movies?
Yes.
The Steven Seagal range, the Sharkula range. We found a movie last week called Miami Connection, and it's about a Taekwondo master and inspirational speaker. And it is everything that you could possibly want out of a movie. It is so good. It's on Pluto TV, so you got to watch it with commercials. But trust me, it is chef's kiss excellent. But
oh my God,
it's this idea of using what's happening and directing it to your own good.
Right.
So that's exactly what we're suggesting this person does.
And that's why I'm saying, like, you do yourself no favors, and in fact, you do yourself a lot of harm by revealing anything that will come in Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, further down the line. You're basically stealing from future you to sort of gain a little bit of energy right now, and it's not to your benefit. So what you do is you take your reader's enthusiasm, and as Brad was saying, you redirect it, and you use their own momentum to seal the deal. I'm so glad you're into the story. This is great. It'll all be revealed in the next couple of weeks. Why don't you sign up for my email list, or why don't you sign up for the Patreon and jump in? It's for free. Don't miss a beat. And you take that energy, because here's what also happens. By deferring the energy of like, oh, the answers will all be revealed in a couple of weeks. First of all, they stick around. They keep checking in for the next couple of weeks. That's number one. Number two, you're probably not going to reveal the secret in the next couple of weeks. We both know that. People will forget. People have the memory of a gerbil that got hit by a snow shovel. Like, people will forget. They will not follow up with that.
Wonderful visual reference.
So you're fine saying, all the answers will be revealed every couple of weeks. Just keep saying that. You're fine.
So let's address your fear. Your fear is that you're going to give them what they think is a disappointing answer, and they're going to go wandering off. Right? Let's put that right out into the ether. That's what you're afraid of. And it's an unnecessary fear, because what they're really interested in is not answers to questions. What they're really interested in is the story that you're telling, right? And as any good storyteller will inform you, it's great to leave a little bit of something unknown. It's great to have them wanting more. It's great for them to say, oh, but I want to know right now. That's when you know you're in the driver's seat as a storyteller. So this is all good things. You cannot screw this up. Keep telling your story. Don't get sidetracked with this stuff, other than to, stoke the fires further and keep going.
So I want to talk about two things before we finish this up. And one is Brad's why behind the what. And then I want to talk about how storytelling takes two parties and how this plays into this, right?
Yeah.
So Brad's why behind the what. Why does Brad love this question so much? Because what are they asking here? The specific what that they're asking for is, hey, what's going to happen with this character? What's going on that makes the king in this kingdom act this way, or what is the backstory for this or that? Right? That's what they're actually asking. But the why behind that what they're really asking is, hey, could I have the whole complete story right now? Because this is a really good story and I'm intrigued by it. That's the why. What they're really saying is, I love what you're doing and I want the whole thing right now.
Yes.
Right? Same thing that happens to George R.R. Martin. Same things that happens to Brad Geiger with Evil Inc. People want the whole story right now, and you can't give it to them. So what you do, as we said, is you judo maneuver it and use that momentum. So that's number one. That's the why behind the what of what's really happening there. Number two is storytelling is a two-part thing, right?
Yeah.
I am telling you a story, and you are receiving the story, internalizing it, and filling in the gaps with all your lived experience, right? Mm-hmm. That's the two parts of a story. And one of the things that Hitchcock did really well is intentionally not show you stuff or intentionally not tell you stuff so that you would fill in the gaps from your own life and thereby make the story more powerful to you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you handhold someone and give them every detail they could ever want, every notation they could ever want, every character backstory they could ever want, it actually is a less effective story. You become a children's book story because you have given them everything and allowed no fill-in on the reader's part to insert their own life and their own lived experience and their own memories of this or that into your story. Because remember, it's a two-part story. So don't ever give them everything, because that is actually a problem.
You made two fantastic points. I'm going to add just a third. It is, I highly recommend it. And I hope all of you get a chance to do it at some point in your lives. It is so wonderful to do a podcast with a Hugo Award nominee. I can't tell you how great that is.
What is this?
I love everything about doing. I'm telling you, I'm seeing you in a whole new light. It's just wonderful. It's just being in your presence. It's just so, I'm just so excited.
Can I tell you what normally happens for Brad when he's podcasting with me is that I'd superimposed over Brad's eyeball in kind of a three-body problem way. He just sees the giant words, jackass, jackass, when he's looking at me. And now, for the first time ever, he's seeing nominee.
Nominated jackass is what I saw, but...
That's the best possible way to answer that joke. I love it. Well, Brad, do you want to take us into our next question, Bradley J. Geiger?
I do indeed. As we're going from that scene to the next scene, let's talk about this question about setting a scene. This one's coming in from Joe, who says, I'm currently working on a history comic, and I'm trying to convey some historical events in an entertaining and engaging way. For the most part, I'm not struggling for any inspiration, but every once in a while, I need to include a panel to convey some important information, but I sometimes struggle to find a way to make that panel fun and interesting. Do you have any tips to overcome a creator's block when working on a problem panel? Many thanks in advance. And that comes from our friend Joe. Now, what do you think, Dave, about this person who is doing a history comic And let's face it, there's a lot of exciting things in history, like a battle or, an election or like a coronation. But there's also a lot of like signing of documents and quiet behind the scenes stuff that isn't as fun to draw as, loading your musket. So what do you do with those panels?
This is a great question because I also want to universalize this to every storyteller out there, not just this question asker, because they, in their history comic, needs to get out certain historical events in an entertaining way. When Brad introduces a new supervillain and you need to know their backstory, Brad needs to lay out their history in an entertaining way. When I introduce a new alien species in Drive, I need to do it in an entertaining way. And all of this could be super dry exposition of it. Like it could read like a Wikipedia entry, then Mega Man, he was hit by radioactive waves and you can make it super boring. So in every type of story, in every type of genre and approach, you have to come up with a fun way, a quick way, an entertaining way to get that exposition out. And just for funsies, I'm going to tell you, because it's a really fun double entendre and Brad will like it. In a lot of storytelling, it's called laying pipe. And now, listen, if you're a blue-collar worker, laying pipe means one thing. If you're Brad writing NSFW, laying pipe means another thing. But for storytellers, what laying pipe means is you're putting down as invisibly as possible the exposition and the background facts and historical context, right? That will let your story take off. But you want to do it, like you said, in really subtle, entertaining, invisible ways. And Brad, I have an answer, but let's hear what you have first here. How do you lay pipe, Brad?
That's a great storytelling kind of analogy too, because it is like that physical act of setting up plumbing in your house, right?
Yes, and hiding it behind the walls, right?
Yes. So let's talk about that. There's a couple of things that come to mind. Number one, just so we throw it out there, Wally Wood's 22 panels that always work wasn't intended to specifically address this problem. However, you can use that as a jumping off point to do what I'm going to tell you next, which is when you're in that situation and you've got this little bit of history that you've got to put across, but it's not really happening for you in a visual way. The first place that I always go to is to change the scene, get a different point of view, even change, where that storytelling is coming from. In other words, you can take a macro view and all of a sudden look down at a map, or you can take a micro view and be right up close on the pen that's signing that document as an onlooker says, oh, did you know that John Hancock was actually, the last person to sign or whatever the factoid is, right?
Right.
That's all of those things are going to come in handy. And also, here's something, oddly enough, that I've got to keep reminding myself. And this is where reading manga and watching anime actually kind of is good for you, because it happens so often in those places, is to remind you that you're doing a comic and that you don't have a lot of rules binding you. You can actually do whatever you want in a comic. And that means if all of a sudden you want to stop the scene and take this next part as if it was an infomercial that comes on at 1 o'clock in the morning. Hey there, folks, have you ever wondered about blah, blah, blah? And have that be how they talk about this thing. Get the new Declaration of Independence. You'll notice that it does this and it does that. Or, maybe used to do certain things. And you can do this whole thing as an infomercial or as any number of things. The point is that, and by the way, once you do that a couple of times and your audience is like, oh, okay, this guy's a nut. He's going to throw a car ad in the middle of this story about the American independence. And that's okay, because it's part of what's happening here. It's part of the design of this whole thing. Once you do that a couple of times, the rules, the gloves are off. The rules are out the window. You can do whatever you want to do.
Boy, do I love that answer. And because Brad absolutely nailed it, I just basically want to give you more examples of what Brad just described, which is visual distraction from boring text, right? Which is basically what you're facing down, right? You've got to get out this exposition. You've got to lay down the pipe of the story. But you got to do it in a somewhat entertaining way. So let's talk about how different forms of media handle this. Let's talk about X-Men, let's talk about Disney movies, and let's talk about Star Trek. And I'll tell you how each of the three do it. So the X-Men, when they need to get out Kurt Wagner's backstory about how he became the Nightcrawler, and he came from a circus family, Brad, but he had very religious parents, and they didn't they thought it was a curse from God that he was the Nightcrawler, and you need to give this whole exposition to understand who Kurt Wagner is, right? Mm-hmm. But what's better than having Kurt Wagner do that monologue to Colossus while they're fighting Magneto, right?
Right.
So the visuals are kinetic. The visuals are happening. They're keeping you going from panel to panel. But in the meantime, you're also learning about Kurt Wagner. So Kurt Wagner's bamfing back and forth as Colossus is crushing, trees against Magneto. And in the meantime, you're learning about Kurt Wagner's backstory, right? So that's how the X-Men would do it. And that's how a lot of comics do it, is you use kineticism to distract from boringism of the text. Let's talk about how Star Trek does it. Star Trek does it with any time they need to get out pipe. Not any time, but a lot of times. Oh boy, that's when the dampeners and the shields are failing, Brad, and everybody's shaking around on screen. And oh God, the Klingons are also firing at that exact moment, Brad, but the shields are going down. But now and also because there's the danger of photon torpedoes being fired, there's now what's called a ticking clock. So you've got to get the facts out quickly. So people they're going to say it quicker. They're going to say it in shorter and clip sentences. And Data will get you the facts you need because we got to solve this problem before the Klingons can destroy us, right? So that's how Star Trek does it. Now let's talk about how Disney movies do it. They've got to get out some boring information about the family madrigal and why do they all have different magical powers, right?
Right.
Well, let's do it in a song.
Yep.
Right? And let's have Stephanie Beatrice sing an absolutely delightful song about how the family madrigal works. And that's great. Super distracting. It gets you clipping. You're humming along. You're remembering it because it's sitting in the back of your craw. But it's basically a version of Wally Wood's 22 Panels at Work, which is give them some, if they got to get boring stuff out in the story, give them a little razzmatazz to get them through it. Right, Brad?
The only thing I could possibly add to that is how Monty Python did it. And that is by saying, and now for something completely different, and just do a crash cut into something else. You know what I mean? And just say, okay, this is how I'm going to get this part of it across, and then crash cut right back. In other words, I think the worst thing you could do in doing a historical comic is to stick to a play acting of the historical events. I think the whole thing that a comic would bring to that would be the ability to do anything from panel to panel.
Yeah. And so let's also talk about how, okay, Brad and Dave, I hear you. You could do a smash cut infomercial. You could do what the Watchmen did and have, inserted pages inside the story, sort of found objects. I hear you, but I don't really want to do that, Brad and Dave. I don't want to break the fourth wall of my own comic. Yeah. So here's another option of how you can get out historical or contextual or boring exposition. Brad writes about a corporation of supervillains. He can have an intern who, quote, doesn't understand what's going on around here. Right. And then the characters have to explain it to him. I can have a new crew member on my drive ship that explains this region of space or explains these aliens or it gives you a reason in story to have to do boring exposition, which of course then you use the razzmatazz distraction techniques. But that inserted character is basically a stand-in for the reader, right, Brad?
And last point here, we tap danced around it with The Watchmen, but take a look at any one of Dave's Drive books. And
Brad, you said that wrong, I think.
I'm sorry. Take a look at one of Hugo Award nominated Dave Kellett's Drive books. Oh my God. It's going to be so tiring.
It's so tiring, but so worth it. Worth the walk, though, I think. Worth the walk.
But seriously, you find out why the guy's nominated when you see how he does this in little encyclopedia pages that wind up in the middle of a chapter, or a receipt from someplace, or you find like a ton of fun ways to get more storytelling in there through incidental, like you said with The Watchmen, found objects, stuff like that. I'll remember how Bram Stoker did Dracula. It was all with diary entries and newspaper clippings, right?
And I'll be honest, it's not like I invented this. Victorian novels used to have inserted letters in the novel where you literally see the letter that the Duke sent to the Viscount or something. Yeah. And then you'd have Frank Herbert with Dune. Every chapter of Dune would have a found object quote that was referring to some either historical document or some encyclopedia page or some edict from the emperor. So this is not something that I've invented. Using found objects inside of a story is really effective and great way to do it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful way to do it. So I think the main bottom line here, Joe, is let your creativity loose on this, and don't feel as if it's got to be a certain thing because it's a historical comic. Let loose, show them all the different ways that you could possibly come up with this. The crazier, the better, because let's face it, that's why most of us got turned off of history when we were in school. And Dave, I don't know about you. And maybe it's because the older I get, the more history I recognize because I went through it the first time.
Yeah, you see the patterns,
Yeah. Also because I was reading about it. And
I see what you mean. Also because you lived through it. Yeah.
It's like now, living through the Reagan years the first time, I didn't really understand what was going on.
No.
Now I'm reading like a book by Richard Wolff. And it's putting all of that into context. And it's like, oh, I see what happened. Now I can think back. I remember seeing that on TV, but I didn't realize it. So it's like you kind of get a better understanding for what you lived through.
Right.
But here's the thing. The way that most of us got turned off of history when we were in grade school was because all that stuff was presented very formally, very upfront, very... Remember this date, remember that date, and remember this guy did that, and this woman did this, and it's all facts and dates, and there's nothing more boring than facts and dates, right? But history is full of stories. It's right there in the word. History has the word story right there in it because it's all about storytelling, and it's all about passion and anger and love
and human
altruism.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's what you focus on. You can't go wrong, in my opinion, if when you're talking about this stuff, you focus in on the stories. In other words, talking about the Declaration of Independence. I keep going back to that one for some reason. Going back to that and talking about it from the standpoint of Thomas Jefferson is perfectly fine. Every historical cartoonist in the world is going to do that. Telling that story from the standpoint of the person in the back of the room that was waiting for these guys to get done so they could clean up and lock up the building and go home for the night, that's the story that I think makes that so much more real.
If I can remind people of Maya Angelou's great quote, because it actually has a relation to history and to exposition, which is that people will forget what you did. They'll forget the dates and they'll forget the numbers and they'll forget the locations. But people will never forget how you made them feel, i.e., they will remember your story and the feelings of your story, right? And so that's what Brad's trying to say. They'll forget the dates, the quotes, the city that it was in, the battle, what the battle was called, but they'll remember how that made them feel. How did Napoleon make people feel? How did Stalin make people feel? They'll remember that, even if they forget what Bonaparte's birthday was, you know?
Oh, yeah. No, that's exactly right. And as long as we're talking about our feelings, I want to talk about now something that makes me feel really proud to be able to share with you the new Huion Canvas 22. It's the third generation of this unit. They're our sponsors of the show today, and we are absolutely excited that we get to share a little bit of time talking to you about this beautiful 21.5-inch entry-level pen display.
Absolutely. And I've been lucky enough to be using my Huion for about a year and a half now. Brad, even more lucky, has been using it for 2.5, 3 years now. And on a personal level, we have absolutely loved what these products have been able to do in our drawing and on a day-to-day basis in terms of the quality of the line art, the quality of the screen, the quality of the pixelation. It's been fantastic for both Brad and I.
It's got a beautiful non-glare screen, so you're not going to get a glare from that overhead light. Plus, when you draw on it, it's got that etched glass that feels more like drawing on actual paper than it was way back in the day when it was like your pen was kind of slipping all over this glass.
Remember, gang, you used to go whoop across the screen? Not here. Not here.
No, Huion's got that figured out. Plus, if you're a quick sketcher like I am, it's got a 90 hertz refresh rate, which means that you're not going to get this distortion of your pen going across the screen. It's going to give you real-time visuals for accurate drawing.
And so where that refresh rate also comes in to help is like, not only is it, if you're a quick sketcher and your pen is dashing across the screen quickly, does it refresh quickly? It's also that it helps as the processor is working on a big file. If you've got many layers, much images, that refresh rate helps out a lot. So I have found that super helpful with my Drive comics because they're frankly big files and I'm a quick sketcher. And so the two of those together has been super helpful for me.
Yeah, and then you're going to want to check out that PenTech 4.0 technology, 16,384 levels of pressure sensitivity. It's just an absolute delight to work on. Plus, I don't know if we can make this clear enough. You're going to get an extra 5% discount when you use the term ComicLab 5 when you check this out. And be prepared for that, because here's the thing, especially with this being their entry-level flagship pen display, the price is jaw-droppingly.
I can't emphasize that part enough, Brad.
Yes.
When you go over to comiclabshop.com, and that'll take you directly to Huion, or you can go to huion.com, and you're going to look for the Canvas 22 Generation 3. Here's the God's honest truth. The price on that thing, and it is a beautiful product, the price on that thing compared to the competition is bonkers good.
Yes.
And then you're going to use ComicLab 5, all one word, ComicLab and then the number 5, all one word at checkout for the discount.
Yeah.
Gang, you're going to be walking out with like, guess what? Dinner's on me tonight, gang, because I just got a Huion and saved a ton of money.
I'm telling you, that's what really made me a believer in Huion in the first place. Was I was looking to set up a home studio for those days when I couldn't get into my studio and I didn't want to lose work. I was working on this very small unit and hunching over, and my back would start to hurt, and I'm like, got it. I've got to get a nice big display that on like we had a few snowstorms here in Philadelphia. When I can't get into the studio, I can just fire this thing up, and my work is not going to suffer.
Right.
And I looked around, and when I saw Huion and what they were offering at the price point that they were offering,
plus, what you get,
yes. And then I took a look at all of the different features that this thing had. I'm like, you can't not give that a try, especially if you're thinking about getting into digital art. This is a great entry level. I'm telling you, I pulled the trigger on that, and I've never, ever looked back. It has become my go-to now for office equipment.
And listen, you guys know we only take sponsors onto the show if we genuinely love what they do and what they make. And we genuinely love Huion and what they do and what they make. So head over to comiclabshop.com. Don't forget the discount code at checkout of ComicLab 5. And check out that Huion Canvas 22 Generation 3 for pros, pro-ams, and amateurs. You are going to love it. Hey, gang, if you're listening while you work, take a minute to stand and stretch.
And while you're doing that, we'll tell you why you should join us on Patreon.
Yeah, because when you do, you'll get hours and hours of podcasts that we've recorded just for backers.
And exclusive Patreon posts that go even deeper on Comic Lab topics.
And you'll get access to our exclusive Discord server, a thriving community of professional cartoonists.
So you can support the show you love and get tons of actionable resources for your own cartooning.
And ho Nelly, if you want even more comics goodness in your life, check out the new drawing show that we're doing with our pal Kevin McShane over at wrongwayshow.com. That's wrongwayshow.com.
In each episode, we'll show you how to draw your favorite cartoon characters the wrong way.
Now, everybody, let's talk comics.
And as long as we're talking about we just got done talking about names and dates and digits, let me give you a few digits that you also want to have in mind, and that is 609 Dry Elbow. That's 609
God, no!
379 3520. That's 609 Dry Elbow. And that's our ComicLab Confab line. You can talk back to ComicLab. If we like your comments, we might even put them on the show. So don't forget at the end, just say, hey, Brad and Dave, you're the best. You're awesome. It's so great to hear about your nomination. This is coming from Joe over at No Shoes for Tuesday at noshoesfortuesday.com. Let us know where we can find your stuff. If we like your comment, we'll put it on the air.
Sure. So once again, that is 1-609-379-3520. And that's the ComicLab Confab. Leave a question, leave a comment. Leave some consideration about how Brad's smile lights up a room whenever he walks in. We'd love to hear from you. Give us a call.
So, real quick, I've got an update, and then I'll let you go into our next question. Last week, we told you about the fuel surcharge for United States Postal Service. We've got some good news to pass along. We've been able to get some more information on that. And that is good news, particularly for comics artists that do a lot of monetization of books. Mm-hmm. And that is that fuel surcharge will not be applied to media mail. And I'll throw the link in the news update that USPS.com revealed. It's going to affect certain services like priority mail, but it's not going to be applied, according to them, to media mail, which is a big relief for those of us doing a lot of book shipping these days.
Yes. And so a tiny addendum to that one, too, is that just a tariff update and I want to keep track of it as we go forward with this because we don't know for sure. But Brad, I got a dummy shipped to me this week from my printer, and a dummy, for those that don't know, is a purely white mock-up of what the book will physically look like, right?
Blank pages.
It's blank pages. Here's the cover, here's the interior, here it is, all mocked up. Physically, this is how the book will like. When DHL delivered it, Brad, they applied a tariff to it. And I said, wait, this is a book. Why would I get a tariff? Yeah. So I just want to give a quick update to everybody that because the dingus in chief lost his Supreme Court case on tariffs and that applied a blanket somewhat universal new tariff at 10 to 15%. It may be the case now that my book, when it gets imported, Brad, is going to have a 10 to 15% tariff on it, even though traditionally books have a dispensation because the dingus in chief lost his other court case. I'm going to keep saying it that way. Yeah. And he applied it this way, I think, under the IEEA tariff resolutions, that now it has to be on every product coming from a country. And since most of our printing is done in either Canada or China, it looks like for now, this temporary surcharge is going to be added on. I don't know for sure, but I just want to keep people abreast of that as they go forward.
So our advice to you listening at home is the same as it's been ever since the beginning of this administration when they started throwing tariffs around. If you're doing a Kickstarter in 2026, you're going to want to include an extra 10 to 15, I would say 20%, just to put yourself in safe, just in case this tariff gets applied to you. Then if it turns out you got the book safely in your storage area and you got free without any tariffs, and you give it another month or so for any surprises to pop up in front of you, then you can put that in your bank account and call that a job well done. Yep. But have a little bit of extra money put aside. I honestly feel more comfortable at 20%. Just in case. And that's 20% of the cost of the shipping over to your doorstep.
I'm so glad you put it that way, because then it becomes an actionable bit of advice of like, well, what do I do? Well, the way you handle it is you put a 10 to 20% extra little buffer in there. Yeah. And worst case scenario, hey, a little bonus for you. But I think, frankly, for the time being, if you're doing it in the early half of 2026, you might get hit with the same surcharge as I might. We still don't know know for sure, but I will keep you updated. So another bit of updating for everybody that's following along over at nationalcartoonist.com. You can sign up and join us this summer, Columbus, Ohio, for the National Cartoon Society Reuben Award Weekend, where Brad and I and a panel of experts will be doing a live ComicLab, which we are so excited about. And we would love to see friends and pals from the Midwest ComicLab listeners join us in Columbus. It is open both to National Cartoonist Society members and to non-members, but you need to go over to nationalcartoonist.com and join us over there.
All right. So let's get back to the show. Dave, we've got, I've been meaning to ask you before we go any further, if anyone was listening to Pro Tips last month when we did our most recent Accountability Pals, one of the things I was talking about was my plan for March matchups. And it was something that I was planning on doing all throughout March.
Yes.
And the reason I brought it up is because when I first teased it to my audience, I got a really negative response. And I'm like, screw those guys, I'm going to do it anyway. And you thought, hey, that kind of gives me an idea. And you were going to do something. I saw it over on Blue Sky. You were promoting it. You did your own version of March matchups. I was just curious how that went, whether you thought it was worthwhile. Just give me a kind of a report on that.
Well, I want to tell you that I actually have a nominee for best friend I can steal an idea from. And this year's nominee is Brad Geiger. I think he's going to win because this was a brilliant idea. And yes, I did steal it. Both Brad and I kind of lifting from March Madness. But Brad, I never would have occurred to me to do this without you. So thank you, my friend. What I did was I said to my readers, hey, there's about 9, 10, 12 species in Drive. Let's say that each species had 100 of their best ships. Who would win in a head-to-head matchup? And then we did brackets going down. And we just got the winners, Brad, of that bracketing. But it was so fun. People were super involved. And I said, I want to hear your thoughts on why you voted the way you voted. And it was great. We had a lot of community. And also, not for nothing, it was a really fun amount of community involvement while it was going on. You know, so not only was it content, for lack of a better phrase, it was community involvement. And so people really feel emotionally attached to it when it was happening. And I only have my friend Brad to thank for this. It was great.
It was such a great, I watched how you were doing it and you really took that idea and ran with it. And I want to put a note to myself to start a little earlier, even next year, because this thing paid off in so many different ways for me as well. It gave me lots of things to talk about, not only in my newsletter, but online. I remember saying during the Pro Tips episode that I was like, oh, yeah, I might get a few extra social media posts about this. Well, between telling you who won the previous matchup, and I started out with, I think, 16 that went through like a Sweet 16 NCAA bracket type of lineup. Between telling you who won, who the new matchups were, how you could vote in the new matchups, I was doing 2 social media posts a day throughout most of March for these March matchups. And one of the best things about it, like you did, I said, I said, okay, let's say it's down between these 2 characters. I want you to vote in a multiple choice. I set it up on Google Forms, this or that, this person or that person. And then I said, based on whatever you want. It was totally agnostic. In other words, if you want to say, I choose this person because she would win in a fight, fine. If you say, I want to choose this person because she's had the best storylines, great. And then on the second tier, I said, after choosing the multiple choice, I set up a short answer box. And I said, tell me why this person would win, right? And then I would take all of those comments. I choose the best ones. They were all anonymous. And I just said, I made a whole post over, phenomenal last one. And but Dynasty had her fans that were really up in arms. Here's what they had to say, quote, 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 but phenomenal last one in the end, quote, 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 right? So all of a sudden, now people started seeing their quotes used in subsequent posts. Now the quotes are getting more fun. They're getting more creative. People are putting more time into it. Now they're kind of competing with each other. The community participation aspect of that was just tremendous.
Yes. Well, in addition to also saying that my friend is a genius, I also want to say for folks that have not read Evil Inc., one of the best and most creative things you ever did was have a character named Phenomenal Lass. And I just think that's so funny. It's such a clever, I never would have thought of that. And it's so fun. I'm so chuffed by that. Look at the smile on your face as you chuckle about it.
It took me hours. When I still remember that ideation. I sat there with the sketchbook.
Did you know where you needed to get to, or where you wanted to go?
I knew I wanted it to be a double entendre, and I wanted it to be cheeky, right?
Right. Quite literally.
Yeah. And I went through it. I bet I can probably find it because I keep all my sketchbooks. I can probably find all the ones that didn't quite make it. But when I tell you that it took me hours to do that, it was unbelievable. And finally, when I hit it, it was like, eureka. This is going to be great.
I was so impressed when you introduced that name because I was like, gosh darn it, never would have thought of that. And so dang delightful, Brad. I think, anyway, get yourself a friend like Brad Geiger that you can wholesale steal ideas from, because the March Madness, March Mania idea was so fun. And both Brad and I use it to great effect. I think Brad better than I, but most of us use it to great effect. And honestly, put it on your iCal or your calendaring system for next year. Just say mid-February, start to create some form of March Madness thing. And figure out a way, having heard how Brad and I implemented it for your own comic. It's great. It's super fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
It was a fun thing to do with my readers. And now I've got to think about what am I going to do next? It was like having an audience participation bit that I could not only do with my Patreon backers, but talk about on social media was such a value add for my backers that now I got to figure out what I'm going to do next.
Well, I can't wait to see what you do next, Brad. The next thing on Brad's plate is going to be great. That's what I say.
Well, actually, you know what? You're not wrong, because I'll tell you what the next thing on my plate is. It's reading this piece of paper that says you've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my ever delightful friend, Brad Geiger, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com, and the handsome co-host of the new drawing show over at wrongwayshow.com.
And my friend, the Hugo Award nominated Dave Kellett. And yes, I will be saying that all summer long. He is the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com, and another handsome co-host along with our good friend Kevin McShane of the drawing show at wrongwayshow.com. Dave, do you think you could live stream from the awards ceremony?
I don't think so.
As a Patreon exclusive for ComicLab? A little live stream? Just hide it inside your suit coat pocket?
Listen to Adam Smith over here, always looking for the capitalism angle.
Oh, yes.
Could you do a live stream for Patreon?
Just put the camera in your pocket like you got a mouse in your pocket, and then we can all sit there quietly. And
Brad, what I need to
as they read your name.
What I need to do is get those new creepy Facebook Ray-Bans that only the sexual predators are going to be using. Brad,
You know what? I'll just find out online like everybody else.
I will say the ComicLab theme song is used with permission from Andy Creighton over at theworldrecord.net, and this episode was edited by the ever wonderful, ever whimsical Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love ComicLab, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your review featured on a future episode. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify, where we are burning up the podcast charts.
And I will give one more huge shout out to this week's sponsor over at Huion. You can head over to comiclabshop.com to get that Canvas 22 3rd generation, and you're going to use that 5% off discount code ComicLab5 at checkout. And on that note, I'm going to say ComicLab is made possible by your continuing support over at patreon.com/ComicLab. So we'll go ahead and say that twice. Patreon.com/Hugos.
I'm already working on the song. There was a great Western song that went, Wherever you go, I go, amigo. And I'm thinking we can do something with Hugo there. Wherever Hugo, I go. Wherever and you go to the Hugos. I've got something percolating already.
And based on the way you just sang that right there, let me ask you, did the original have any musicality to it, or was it just kind of dead note?
Very, very musical. There's a great version by David Ball, and it's very. It's
my God, you have the references. You just pull these references out of your ass. Like 1943, David Ball wrote a song called "Wherever You Go, I'll Go with Smiles," and you're going to want to check that out. I've been Brad Geiger with your history moment.
I think it was an old Gene Autry song. It was one of those, the kind of from the time that the Three Amigos were parodying.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
That kind of movie. And it's a man basically singing to his guitar. And he's saying, wherever you go, I go, amigo. And the amigo is his guitar. He's singing to his guitar that he takes with him everywhere.
So he's singing to his guitar. So the song that you want to sing to me about the Hugo nomination is it basically I need to get out more is what you want to say.
Yeah. You need to touch grass and just see some people out there.
As a sci-fi author, I accept that critique.